All right, graph data request. All right, so what is graph data? Subgraphs, and pretty much any subgraph that you see on the chart. And it includes like the built-in studies, CR charts, spreadsheet subgraphs, color bar based alerts, custom studies that produce subgraphs. Basically any subgraph that is on the chart is included in the definition of graph data. The other part that we include in graph data is the base data arrays, which refers to the open, high, low, close, volume, all the data that you have for any bar. Another way to think about graph data is basically the data that you get in CR chart for each bar, right? So each bar has either the open, high, low, close volume and some subgraphs associated with it and so on. Graph data refers to that data, right? All the subgraphs that are produced by studies and then the base data of the chart itself, which is the open, high, low, close volume and the rest of the list here, right? So all these values here are part of the base data and are accessible. So what can we do with it? We can retrieve historical graph data and we can retrieve real-time graph data. Historical graph data is sent one time at the start and we can receive X number of bars. The real-time graph data is sent periodically and we can receive an X number of bars for that as well. And we'll see how that works in just on the next slide. Okay, so we mentioned that in one request, we can basically ask for historical bars, real-time bars, and the combinations of the two. And this is a diagram showing how that might work. Okay, so in this example, I have a request to get some graph data, and I'm asking for 100 historical bars and 5 real-time update bars. Okay, so the request goes to CR chart. On the CR chart side, what's going to happen is that initially it'll send back 100 bars of the current, like the last 100 bars on the chart. And after that, it'll send 5 bars on each update. Okay, so what we'll see on the client side, we'll receive the first response will be 100 bars of the current history. And then on each update, we'll receive the last 5 bars. Okay. If I were to set the real-time update bars to 0, right, that I don't want any of these, basically what would happen is that this would get sent, the 100 bars would get sent, and this would not happen, right? I wouldn't get any update bars here. And vice versa. If I had this set to 5 and this set to 0, this part would not happen. I would not get any history. I would just start to get real-time updates as they occur. So the graph data request API basically looks like this. Okay, so it has a bunch of parameters, and I'll go over the categories of these here. So basically it addresses like 3 different questions, right? What data do we need, which we define using these 2 parameters. One is which subgraph data we need, and then what base data do we need. How many bars to send, so how many real-time update bars to send and how many historical init bars to send, and how often to send it, right? So we can define the update frequency, and we can also define to only send on bar close, or to include that or not. In general, the API itself takes care of sending historical bars as well as real-time bars, and we can combine that into one request, and we'll see that later. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the subgraph data and the base data fields. Base data is a semicolon separated list of values, In this example, it's going to look something like this. So in this example, we have 1, 4, 10, and 11. 1 corresponds to the open. 4 is the last. 10 is bid volume, and 11 is ask volume. Okay. Subgraph data is a semicolon separated list of subgraphs, and it basically follows the following format. Okay, I first specify which study I want, and then I specify which subgraphs from that study. So taking this as an example, I want study ID 1, whatever that is, and then I want subgraphs 3, subgraph 4, and subgraph 5, right? With a semicolon separating them. Or I can do it as a list, right? I can do subgraph 3 to subgraph 5. So these two would be equivalent. I can also create a mixed list and ranges together, right? If this is a range and this is a list, I can do subgraph 3 through subgraph 5 and subgraph 8 and subgraph 9. Aside from that, I can also have subgraph data equaling multiple studies and subgraphs within a single call, right? So in this example, I have subgraph 3 to subgraph 5 from ID 1, and also subgraph 3 and subgraph 5 from ID 2. And this can go on. So using this format, in this format, I can basically specify which base data and which subgraph data I want to receive. Okay, so let's go over and see what a graph data request and then what the response looks like and how to access and understand it. So starting from up here where we're looking at the actual request, we basically in this example are requesting base data and subgraph data. The base data in our case includes the open and the close, and it includes two subgraphs, subgraph 1 and subgraph 3. In this specific example, it's coming off of this Bollinger Band. Subgraph 1 is the top band, subgraph 3 is the bottom band. So open and close, upper band and lower band. We've asked for 2 historical bars, and we've asked for 3 real-time bars. Okay. So when this request is sent, Sierra Chart responds by sending 2 historical bars, which is what we see here, right? This is 2 rows, 2 bars. Then it starts sending real-time update bars, each time sending us 3. So we have 3 and then another 3, and if we would have waited longer, we would have seen 3 being sent periodically. Each row here is a bar. Okay, so in this case, the first, and it goes from like the top one is the most recent and then going down. So we can see here the timestamp is 0929, 092830, and so on. So the first field is going to be the timestamp. The next field is a flag telling us if the bar is closed or not. The third field is an index of that bar, right? So it's just an index of where that bar is on the chart. This chart specifically has 2,291 bars. The last index is 2290. The indexing starts from 0, right? So it's a 0 count. And then after that, we have a layout of the data itself, right? The graph data that we requested, starting with the base data and then the subgraph data, right? So in this case, we have 2 of each, 2 base data items and another 2 subgraphs, the upper band and the lower band. And that's the way it goes down. In this case, we have 2 historical bars being sent and then 3 Update bars, as you can see with the update bars, because we have the on bar close set to false, we're receiving the live bar and then 2 of the close bars. Okay, live bar, 2 of the close bars. And in this way we can get data as it's changing. You can see kind of, if you kind of look closely here, you'll see that the first row here ends with a 0, 1. Here it ends with a 0.98 because the value changed for the live bar in between these two calls, whereas the 2 historical rows stayed the same. All right.